Well, I must be the most stressed person today since I'm on both the organization as well as a supporting organization. So every year I have to think about, whether the audience likes the topic, whether you like the food, whether you enjoy the panel sessions, will you ask questions. So, and then tomorrow it starts all over again. Okay, well, I think you've heard from Fermin, and I'd like to introduce, just quickly, Mr. Gerard Yi, who is the chairman of the Charity Council, and most recently, the chairman of the Agency for Integrated Care. Since I was young, I've heard of his father's name, good name, Honorable Mr. Yi Ping Liang, and he has always been known as the father of charity. So to me, he must be Mr. Charity then.
Son of charity.
Son of charity.
I also would like to introduce Fermin you've met, Ms. Mildred Tan, Chairman of MVPC, also a member of the Charity Council, Ms. Geraldine Lee, co-founder, Center Manager, ARC Children's Center, who has 30 years of experience in public relations, so she must have started as a toddler. And Ms. Yuen Thio, Joint Managing Partner and Head of Corporate, TSMP Law Corporation. So all of us managing charities, large and small, we all understand the need for good human resource management. We all need competent staff so that the charity can provide its services, raise funds to fulfill its mission. So we have actually about 40 minutes, and we are standing between you and lunch. So let's get straight to it. First, I will give an opportunity for the panelists to speak for about 3 to 5 minutes. Firstly, on any comments on Fermin's presentation, and also on the first question. It's a general question. In the charities you have worked with, what were the main difficulties you faced in the area of attracting, retaining, and motivating staff, and how did you deal with these issues? And after that, I will open this to the audience, for you all to ask some questions. It's good to have a two-way interaction. So while they are speaking, please think of the questions you'd like to ask. Let's start with the ladies. How about Mildred, Stefanie, Geraldine, and then Gerard and Fermin?
Sure. Thanks very much. It's very exciting to see so many of you. I remember coming to the first charity meeting. It was a much smaller group, but it's exciting that this sector has grown. I guess my first thing about attracting and retaining talent, there are a couple of things on my mind. I thought that first is about the culture of the organization in which you represent. There is obviously the basics of compensation benefit and what it means and all the different types of policies and practices. But I always feel that the culture which Fermin talked about is important. And as leaders, all of you are leaders in that sector, you actually set the tone for the charity that you represent. So recognizing your people, to me, one of the best things is about lifelong learning and therefore opportunities to invest in training and development in a charity. For the staff is one way I feel is very important. Another way is perhaps also the kind of things of recognizing their needs, inverted commas. They have family issues or they have certain important things that they need to take care of. So some of these things are not wired in the HR policies and practices, but they come up in the cultural aspects of caring and sharing in a particular charity. So I think that some of these nuances need to be called out for charities. I'd like to touch on what Fermin said about boards then. I always feel that there is a need for board renewal, so I'm with you on board renewal. And I do think that said, there should always be, I always say there's a 1/3 of new board members, 1/3 of current board members, and 1/3 of older board members. So there is always a change, if you like. But there's certain sustainability regards to what boards, the older board members can bring to the table and what newer board members can bring to the table. So I am all for board renewals, and it is important to have succession planning. So, and succession planning both in terms of talent management in the organization as well as talent management for boards. So those are my opening remarks.
All right, thank you. Why don't we proceed with Geraldine?
Hi, everybody. I stand here as representing the small and medium-sized charity. ARC is only 7 years old. So I'm very honored to be here, sharing whatever I can with what we have been running. I like what Fermin said about the board role, the organization role, and because of the uniqueness of our setup where we are the co-founders, together my other co-founder there, we have also a role in the sense of representing what the organization is about to the board. And it'd be nice for the board to also work with the organization to also strategize together the whole the future of what the charity will be about. So yeah, that's what it is. Thank you.
All right, Stefanie?
Hi, everyone.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually here not in my capacity as a lawyer. I co-serve with Mildred on the NVPC. I started my journey in charities working at Dover Park Hospice, and I think you've got some familiarity with Dover Park Hospice. I founded our firm's pro bono and charitable initiatives 10 years ago when we decided that we should be giving 10% of our profits to charities, and I think we've actually we did a kite flying session with the ARC Children's Center. So I've got some experience on the volunteer side, on the fundraising side as well. In terms of the challenges that you face within for HR and for motivating people, a few things. One, when I first started at Dover Park Hospice and we wanted to pay people well, I was told by some of the more conservative members, this is a charity. We cannot expect to be paying people the same as what they're getting in the private sector. But I don't agree with that. As a private sector person myself, I think that you get as good as you pay for, all right? And every person who brings their passion to a charitable sector, you know they're going to be giving more than what you're going to be paying them. Obviously, we're not talking about paying them ministerial salaries, okay? But if you're getting a mid-level staffer, why shouldn't you pay them as much as they're getting in a bank, in the admin side of a bank? Because they're going to be giving so much more, because the charity is going to take a lot more out of you. It takes a bit of your heart and a bit of your soul every day, in a good way. You plant into other people's lives in a good way. So that was my first fight with people. I get into fights a lot. So my first fight with people was over. We should pay them what the market is paying them and expect more from them than they would be giving to a normal commercial job, because that's what the charitable sector does. So I don't believe in doing it the other way around. Otherwise, it's just a race to zero. You just get the race to the bottom. All right, that's the first thing. Secondly, I think sometimes we fight against a mindset, another mindset change, which was when somebody said, oh, who should we get on board? I said, hey, nowadays the millennials are fantastic. They're very passionate. As a matter of board renewal, why don't we have one or two relatively young ones, late 20s, early 30s, come on board and serve, because these guys have been giving of themselves since they were in junior college and university. I was told, no, they're too young to serve in a board capacity. I think some of these mindsets really do need to change, and then we can be tapping a whole new group of people. I look around the room, and I'm afraid to say that a lot of you have as much white hair as I do under the hair dye. I look forward to a day when this room is 1/3 filled up with much younger people who bring a different mindset and a different passion and a different energy.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, I have two comments I'd like to make. One is with regards to boards. I agree with everything that's been said, But for those of you who are chairing boards, I hope you do not allow your board to ever become a social network. I visited quite a number of other charities and boards, and what happens is once a quarter or less frequently, the board members come together, they have a good meal, they chat, sit down through some presentation, bye-bye, they go off, and then a few months go by, and they really bring no value to the organization. Board members must be mission-driven. They must be picked for what you believe they can contribute and make them work. Forget about the nicety and, actually I don't see why you need to provide lunch for board members. Preferred timing, just fix your board meetings at 3 o'clock. You don't have to provide lunch. And I suspect most people prefer 3 o'clock because they can finish all the important work in the office and then come down for the board meeting. and they won't drag on the meeting because they want to go home at 5 o'clock as well. I see, disagree. But anyway, the second point I want to make is this. It is the organization that is doing charitable work. It is not the people who join the organization doing charity for the organization. I think it's a very important difference. And I think this is a legacy issue from back in the 1950s when charities were set up to provide shelter and 3 meals a day, and there was very little support. There wasn't even a ministry for social, and there wasn't even a social welfare department. And people came together with whatever money they have, and therefore it's voluntary work from the clans, from the temples, religious organizations that make this charity exist. And we have carried on this legacy, this mindset. I think we need to break away from that and say it is an organization out to achieve good outcomes, and don't expect your staff to make those type of sacrifices because they are like anyone else with a family, with aspiration, and with needs to fulfill. The problem lies with donors. Again, legacy, donors are stuck in a mindset that administrative costs should not exceed 10% or 15%. And they, for whatever reason, is blind to the fact that if the charity is to be efficient, is to achieve good outcomes, there are expenses when they hire the right staff, the right qualified staff. So I think donor education in this respect is very important. And we got to shift the donors' attention away from expenses towards judging the charities by the outcomes that they produce and see the effectiveness of it. Only then, when you relate the expense to the outcome, then I think we can break this barrier of 10, 15% and go more towards 20 to 25%, and things would improve.
Thank you, Gerard. Actually, interestingly, in all the organizations I've joined, I started lunchtime meetings, and the attendance actually went up a lot more. One of the reasons is actually I felt bad that the staff would have to work the whole day and then attend a board meeting until late at night or on weekends. So I thought weekdays, maybe lunch or after lunch is a very good time. It's Fermin.
Yeah, add a couple of things. We talked about pay and leadership and careers and training and engagement. There's one aspect that I want to mention. There are not enough people out there to take care of the needs of our beneficiaries going forward. Full stop. There is not going to be enough social workers. There's not going to be enough therapists. There's not going to be enough counselors. At this point, we have enough psychologists. I'm not sure if that's going to hold. And there are certainly not enough teachers. And that's not going to change. Singapore is only going to grow at that 1-point-something% that you keep hearing about. But the needs are going to grow much faster than that. We all know that. All of this is known. And the fact is that as hard as we may try to get people to join all of our different professions to help all of our different beneficiaries, we are not going to be able to be that successful that all of a sudden we're going to bring in 5 and 10% more people into the sector every year for the next 5 years. So it's a reality. Part of what board members need to realize is that if this is a reality, how are we going to do our businesses different? This is what I was trying to talk about earlier. So how much tech are you going to bring into your organization? And tech may be apps, but tech is probably equipment, machines, robots. How much flex work are you going to allow into your organization? People that are only going to work 2 days a week. People are going to work what we are now calling school schedules, which is working mothers that are willing to work only 8 to 2 because they want to be home by the time their child gets home. How are we going to change the mindset that we can't just expect the university to pump out more social workers or to pump out more gerontologists to cover a need that is growing far faster than our ability to fulfill it? This is the type of idea that I hope boards and management can start having discussions on, because 5 years from now, again, as hard as we may be trying to do this, 5 years from now, we're going to be in a worse situation than we are today in terms of the shortage of manpower, and we need to find better answers than that.
Yeah. I was second that and add more weight to what Fermin has just said, because with a shrinking population, the supply to the job market will shrink, and all the sectors will be competing for this much smaller population of workers that is going to be available, and you're not going to be able to compete in terms of salaries with all the other sectors. So what I foresee is there will be a growing trend towards the use of volunteers. And really, I'm glad NCSIAS has come out with a volunteer management program. In the Agency for Integrated Care for Outreach, we are very dependent on volunteers. We have volunteers that started off with the Pioneer Generation Office and now the Silver Generation Office. These are the people who do the outreach, who goes down and knock at the doors at night. You have community network services. Again, it depends on people out there. Silver Line. So the trend is there. And I think charities will have to see how they can better manage their operations with a greater use of volunteers. Not volunteers that comes and cut grass and all that, but volunteers with proper training program that becomes a part of your operation. And this is where then another taboo subject that maybe is about time for us to rethink. Should we compensate volunteers for out-of-pocket expenses? I think right now it's still taboo, and we are locked into this mindset that volunteers should not be paid a single cent. And in my mind, I say, but why? They are volunteering their time, their energy, and everything, and you still want them to be out of pocket? Is that a reasonable assumption? So I think it's about time we sit down and start examining some of these set ideas that is just locked into the system and break away from it.
So anybody would like to respond?
Actually, Gerard, I agree that we need to be thinking in that direction, Fermin. I think we certainly should be getting more tech. The problem is Singapore has two types of charities. They've got the big ones, which are very well established, got very, very big names. Kidney Foundation, for example. It's got big names, it's got big support, it's got automatic, it's got automatic recognition. And then there are the very small ones, the ones that have been put together because a few friends got together, they got a few other friends to do things, and they just start. And those guys, it's really hard for them to be thinking, can I invest in tech? They can barely get the computer thing running. So I think where we really need to go is, while we mobilize volunteers on the ground, where the government can really help is to put together some programs that many people can sign on to. For example, a computer program, a software program for managing your donors, for getting that information. Very basic things that corporations deal with all the time, which as a small charity, you really just can't afford to be doing.
You see me opening my name card to pull out, because just a moment ago I was talking to Loh Teck Heng, Deputy Director of iShine Cloud, and they exist for this purpose. They've been around for 7 months, and the last 4 months I think they've been hard at work. Yeah. And he says, we're here to help people with the IT, but they're no takers. Yeah. So please take note. It is in existence.
And
Loh Teck Heng, where are you? Okay, stand up and be identified. This is the man to see for your IT solution. It was formed.
And they have volunteers.
Why do I have the courage to point you all to them? The project of Singapore Pools. So that means a lot. That means the money is there.
Can I, on behalf of NVPC and CNPL, also offer, when we talk about, and Gerard talked about the fact that, you know, there's a certain old boys network that goes around with board members. We actually have a database under Board Match of illustrious people who can actually come into and help charities. And this service is also free. We will give you a list of names for you to actually choose who will, and that's why it's called a match, who you like to invite to your boards. So all this is available to you, and so you don't have to struggle to look at, oh, actually I do need, to Fermin's point about I need certain skill sets, or I need certain things. Well, what do you need? If you do need, in fact, sorry, Andy, you're sitting right in front, so I see you have my line of sight. So if Andy can just stand up, and you met Andy earlier when he talked about our digital innovations for NVPC, go and see him about Board Match. And if you need new board members or you need people to come and help you, he can actually facilitate that process.
And in terms of tech, by the way, there is money. The National Productivity Fund is looking for people that want to implement tech to ensure that we can replace. And the moment I say that, people then go, oh, no, I don't want to fire anybody. And the point is not firing anybody. The point is you won't find new people to hire. And you have to start thinking machines to replace the people that you would have otherwise hired, because there won't be there. And just to put the mindset right, big and small, the issues are roughly the same, even though the approaches may be different on how to tackle them. But on the mindset side, one of the things, to your point about taboos that we never touch, is do we hire anybody over 55? And this is another one of those, oh my God, you know. But, you know, the expectation is that we're going to work until well into our 60s or even into our 70s. But when I ask any of the social service organizations, yeah, I got this great candidate for you, she's 58. Oh no, bring me somebody younger. You know, this is a real problem, because the somebody younger doesn't necessarily want to work in this sector, whereas the 58-year-old has a lot of experience that is willing to now come and contribute, but we have the mindset that, oh no, we shouldn't be looking into that. So just to sort of put it in perspective, big or small in this case isn't so much the issue as how are you going to tackle the fact that there aren't enough people to hire?
Well, maybe you can open up the questioning to the audience. Anybody would like to ask any questions on what the panelists just said or on Fermin's presentation?
There's a question.
Lady there. Mic's coming to you.
Hi, sorry, it's me again. My name is Kirsten, and I'm coming from the German European School here in Singapore. So we just had a great opening of our new campus like 2 weeks ago. But I live in Singapore since 12 years, so I'm not really Singaporean, but I speak a little bit Singlish. So what I do is I also do some kind of volunteering. So I work for a school, which is a charity, where I see one side, but I'd also do volunteering, for example, for dog shelters. I also sponsor 7 children in the Philippines, so I do quite a lot of social work. And just because we were talking about costs and the volunteering, for example, all the dog shelters moved from Pasir Ris out now to the other side of the city. So for all the volunteers, it's getting more difficult to go there because there's no MRT, no bus going. They don't have the money to pay a taxi or whatever. So the volunteering rate is going down because simply they have no possibility to do volunteering work. So this is just an example. So how can like the charity council help these organizations that at least the volunteers are coming in? We are not even talking about the donations they are missing these days, but what can be done, who to approach. Also doing volunteering at school. I'm trying to establish a community club that we get all the community also around us in the building and get together. Singaporeans, Germans, Australians, all these people. But it's so, sorry for my English, so damn difficult to get volunteers that people really want to spend the time, which is the most precious what we have these days. So what can you do and what could the rest do to really get people again on board? And sorry, coming back to technology, not only 10 Singapore dollar and now I feel better. So that's my big question. That's the big challenge we are facing.
I suppose since Charity Council is mentioned, I have to reply to this question. I don't have answers for you, except that Singapore is not a very large place. The new territory where you have been relocated to, I think a question of how to make yourself known in that geographic area so you can get new sets of volunteers that are living nearer to you. For existing lawyers, volunteers who are staying in Pasir Ris side, of course, that's a challenge. But I think that's the only thing I can advise you is to make sure that you are known where you are. Because even in those areas it's populated, whether it's Sembawang or wherever it is, and you will find new sets of volunteers. Actually, there are a lot of animal lovers in Singapore. We try and tap this new community that side.
Okay, Gerard, maybe I can help a little bit here. NVPC, and I'm again, sorry, I'm looking at Andy again. We actually have developed an app. And the mobile app is about within a 5 km radius of where you live or work, you will begin to see charities that needs help. And really at the end of the day, because we find that if I have a window of time, whether it's even including weekday or weekend, what is the nearest charity or nearest NPO that requires help? So if I have my lunchtime hour, I have some time, and I'm working in Jurong East, and I figure out what's near me. So that's why it's a two-way. So it is important, one part for what Gerard said, that the charities get known and need help, and they raise their hands. And the other thing is for us to bring some of the volunteers to you. And sorry, I'm going to make Andy stand up again. Andy has the app. What's the app called, Andy?
Actually, this location-based, we're going to put it through SG Care. So
location-based, yeah.
The point that actually Mildred mentioned, actually there are two actually applications behind this, but you'll be integrated. At the heart of this is actually Giving.sg, which is actually where all the opportunity will then reside. The apps that Mildred mentioned will be actually on the new SG Care apps that will be coming up by next month. Yeah. So we are testing it out now. So that's where the next extension of the SG Care apps. So, so the whole idea actually with all this technology is that we intend to actually start integrating all the different pieces together and then design it in such a way where it actually reach the end, what you call the end point. Because one of the challenges today, I think, with technology is that while we look at technology without looking at the business process, you're not going to reach the end point. So I think, using like the design thinking concept, look at actually what's the problem we're trying to solve, and then bring the different technology together. So if it's in a case of actually looking for more volunteer for for the dog shelter, then design an experience around that. Bring the relevant resource into that, and then creates that flow. So this is actually what we're doing. So the two apps, the apps is actually on SG Care, and go to Giving.sg, explore Giving. There is actually a lot of, right now we have 150,000 users that is actually accessing Giving.sg. The view is like about 80 over 1,000 a month. So you'll find that there will be people actually who will be looking at that.
Actually, to encourage you, I would reframe the issue that by moving west, you're now giving residents of the west a chance to volunteer with you because they were found Pasir Ris too far for them. So don't give up hope. Yeah.
So perhaps one more question from the audience. This lady in front.
Sorry about that. I think, Fermin, you mentioned career development, and particularly when it comes to small charities, etc. Couple of questions. What is stopping this whole entire charity thing in providing cross-functional postings, rotational assignment? In other words, acting like a multinational. So looking at it without borders, but providing cross-functional posting, that's first thing. Second thing, in terms of attraction, it's all about branding. And the idea of each of these charities trying to differentiate themselves in terms of the offerings and creating a brand for themselves, which attracts people. And I love, what you've actually said about that. And I think the third thing is actually a practical problem, because the charities sometimes do not have enough. If they have a minimum manning policy because of salary costs, etc., then how are they going to actually be able to work on succession planning? And the assumption is that if I were to, I will still need to increase my labor force. So I think let's talk a little bit about workforce planning as well for the charities. Thank you.
So careers without borders, branding, and then the third, workforce planning. Let's start with the first one. The biggest obstacle is ourselves in plural. Huh? You start with the premise that I want my employee to stay with me forever, but then I don't have anywhere to promote them to. And that employee may actually really care about you personally and about your cause deeply, but they also care about themselves and their professional development. So there are a couple of ways to do this. We have tried. We created the whole Sunray idea is to do precisely that, to move people around. We also do it with all of our scholars on purpose. The fact that we've created a job portal, which is also publicly available, is inside of the socialservicetribe.sg site, where all the jobs that we know of are posted that allows people to move. These are all good ideas, but they start with a simple premise that you need to want to, maybe want is too big a word, you need to at least be resigned to the fact that you have to let them go. We can help to structure it if needed. The problem I see so far is the smaller charities are always afraid that everybody will flow to the big charities and they lose. But how are you going to help it? You either find somebody who just really wants to work in this forever and does never want to be promoted, but then those are a rarer breed of person, but you could. Or if not, you accept the fact that you're a small charity, that people every 3 or 5 years are going to move on, and that every 3 or 5 years you need to replenish and work that way. That's what we try to do with Sunray. What we try to do with Sunray is we'll help you find every 3 to 5 years a new person to come in to replace the one that is going to leave, because that one otherwise doesn't have career options. So, like I said, we can help, but in general, I think it's a problem of you either find the exact person or you just have to accept the fact that they're going to go. This is true of SMEs, this is true of everywhere else. People from the smaller places go to the bigger places because they will find the career options. The other thing we're going to try to do, by the way, and this is work in progress, is we're going to take the skills framework that is now in place and try to align better the job levels to skill levels. So that even though you don't have a job to move people to, there is no vacancy in your org chart, you can at least promote people. But that also means that small charity has to accept that this person now needs to be paid more because they have more skills, even though they don't have a bigger job. So that's more or less the way we're addressing it. On the number 2, which is the branding, there is no substitute really. We will do the branding for Tribe, And the Branding for Tribe has 3 main targets. The first target is mid-career transfers, people that will want to come and join the sector. The second target is what we call boomerangs, which is the people that have left that we want to come back. But the third target is not just the students in the social service who we want to come join the service as opposed to go do something else, but the parents of those students. So we are quite keen on the fact that we need to convert parents, because otherwise their children don't study the kinds of things that we want them to. But no substitute for whatever it is you stand for, whatever it is your organization does, make as much noise as you can. We're all for that. On workforce planning, that starts with strategic planning. That starts with the idea that you need to know where your organization is going to be at least 3 years from now, so that then you can figure out what kind of organization structure you need to have 3 years from now, at what level people must be. Then you look at your current people and say, can I get them to grow that fast? And if the answer is no, then can I start hiring now so I can get the right people in 3 years' time? That is what we always recommend, but it starts with strategic planning, which is why it starts with the board.
Okay. Well, actually, we only have time for one question left for each of the panel members, and so I just want to ask one last question, and just following up on some of those points on remuneration and such. I've observed that as more corporate people join the staff and boards of charities, this question comes up quite often. You know, you have high performers in your organization. Is it appropriate for charities to pay market rate, above market rate, earn high bonuses, be 6 months or more? You know, and I've heard both sides of the argument. You know, some say, well, this is charity money, there's no way you can pay that. But others will say, look, you know, if you have high performers and you want to keep them, retain, motivate them, we have to pay them bonuses, right? So what is our Geraldine? Do you have any views on that?
Yes, I represent you small charities, and I am a paid staff, so yes, but I think it also has to be in proportion to who it is that we are serving, our big pool, our money that's in, our donations and all this is that responsibility. But I also want to say that because being a small or a medium-sized charity, it doesn't mean that we all the time, yes, we love to pay them more, but sometimes it is not possible. When we started, we only had 50K. That's all we started with. So as what Fermin was saying about older staff, younger staff, whatever staffing, I mean, at that time, whoever wants to work, come. That's how desperate we were. But now, our staffing ages are from their 40s and above. And I tell you, they're wonderful. It's not about the age. It's about being able to want to serve and want to be of service at any role. And being a small charity, we need people, the talent, to also be multitasking. We want that because it helps. We can't hire one person to do one role. We don't have that kind of resources. Are there many small and medium-sized charities here? Nobody,
No, there's a few. There's quite a few. There's quite a few.
Yes, there are quite a few.
Yeah. So, Brother Ang, you're back. I missed you. Yes. So because of this role, I have a major problem. I have a problem because the board needs to match. Wow, pay so much. I tell you, we've been here 7 years. We are now just starting the minimum. We just touched, you know, the minimum of the NCSS salary scale. And there is so much effort trying to get the board to believe in that also. And also Mr. E's help lah. But the whole point is, should we pay more? Yes, because the staff are important. The staff is the service deliverer. So the staff has to be our family. I I've been in charities for many years, and sometimes I don't understand. Here we are wanting to do good for the people that we are here to serve, but yet we're not good to our colleagues, we're not good to our staff. There's something wrong in that. If you want to do good all the way. So that's why in ARC, it's a family culture. It is a family. We care about them as much as we care for our beneficiaries, our clients, whoever you want to address it. They have an issue. And I find what works for me in terms of staff retention is to allow the staff to have as much relationship connection with the beneficiaries. They sell. They connect. Once they connect, passion are fueled even more. They will do more. Yeah. And right now, and also for me, for us as the management, is to give them the autonomy to do their job well, remove all obstacles from them. Because they have a lot of obstacles in that sense. We don't pay them well. Number one obstacle. They can go, yes, but why do they stay? Because they love it there. They love the children. I'm from a children's center. They love the kids. They love the environment. They stay. They do more. And sometimes you don't have to ask for them. So it's trying to get them connected to your organization. So in terms of paying market value, yes, I benefit. But we have to also realize what is the size of our charity. Who are we serving? We also have to justify. We have to justify to our donor. And to justify to the best way, friends, take the donor, the corporate, whoever it is, to your charity. I don't believe, because we are small, I cannot spend the resources trying to get these people, get that people. I love to build relationship. Our donors and our corporates has been with us from beginning, 7 years, 5 years.
Okay, thank you, Geraldine.
Sorry.
Think we are just about running out of time. So anyone else would like to take a minute to answer that question?
Just a quick one then.
How about sorry, I think Mildred was about to say.
No, not at all. I was just going to say that I think that the universal truth is everybody wants to pay what's right and what's good and right. I think that's the bottom line. But you also have to be very mission or cause-centric. I think that's what we've heard. Okay, not that I want to use Andy again, but I'm sure Andy, if he goes out to the private sector, he is inundated with offers. But the fact is he has remained with us, and I say, oh wait, continue remaining with us. It's important because I think he feels that there's a mission for him in doing the work that he does. So that's one thing I think is very important. And the second thing that you also touched on was about the culture of the organization. Do you have that? Yours you've described as family. Others have talked about caring, supporting one another, allowing flexibility to happen when you look at the needs of the people in your organization, and allowing that flexibility because at the end of the day, people have choices.
See, would you like to have the last word on this?
I think there's a need to educate the donor. All what has been said is absolutely valid, that it's not just pay, but at the same time, you need to recognize that the individuals are like anybody else, so they also have mortgages to pay off, children to raise, and so forth. So a fair wage, but the donors still haven't woken up to the idea that you need to spend more than 10%. For administration.
Okay, thank you. And on that note, I would like to thank all my fellow panelists and thank the audience for your time.
Thank you. And Mr. Ang Hao Yao, moderating, will now present a token of appreciation to each of our panelists. While he does that, let me just briefly tell you of the next hour or so ahead. It's now almost 1 o'clock, so can you please help yourself to the lunch and make your way downstairs to the Grange Room on the 5th floor for Dr. Ang's session on the visibility program that you each received in your bag this morning. We now have 150 seats. We've added 60 by rearranging the room. So brothers and sisters are welcome downstairs. As soon as you can, please, with your lunch for that optional session starting at 1 p.m. Please be back up here or in that room where the camera is at 2:30 p.m. for the sessions on communications and audit. Have a great afternoon.